All right, welcome back, folks. We are back. We are talking about the Rams offseason, free agency, all that. Before we get into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And, of course, follow me on social media at JKBogan. And, of course, I got to mention, I have an uncensored, unfiltered podcast that I talk about pretty much everything. So be sure to check that out. Link is in the description. We're now on episode 5. It's a daily podcast. So if you want more JE content, there you go. Anyway, let's dive into it. So, edge defenders, right? We talked about the offensive line yesterday in great detail. We had a video for Kevin Dotson and whether or not he should be tagged. Spoiler alert, I think he should be tagged if they can't come to a deal before free agency. And then we talked about the free agents on the offensive line. Well, we're going to be doing that again with the edge defenders, okay? So let's dive into it. And with the Rams, it's important to realize that right now, the Rams are in a position here where they could lose Michael Hoyt. They currently have Byron Young on the roster. He's the only starter. And then behind him is Nick Hampton, O'Shawn Mathis, Keir Thomas, and Zach Van Valkenburg. That would be by far the worst room of any position in the NFL, especially if Hoyt was gone. It wasn't a great position group this year, although Hoyt had, one more pressure, or I believe I think it was Brian Burns had one more pressure than Michael Hoyt. That says more about Brian Burns than Michael Hoyt. But Byron Young, I thought, had a really good rookie year, kind of showed that, he can last in this league. And I didn't really I didn't really doubt that, but you saw some things that really stood out. I think week 1, especially the way he bodied, he absolutely bodied the left tackle for Seattle. It didn't even look close. So to see him convert speed to power the way he's doing, the way that's translating to the NFL, good stuff. So let's talk about it. Who's available for the Rams in free agency? Just free agency. We're not talking about trades. We're not talking about draft, just free agency. So let's dive into it. The first player, number 3 on the PFF ranking, is Josh Allen of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, his projected contract is 1 year, $21.9 million average over the year. And why is that? PFF is projecting that Josh Allen will be tagged, and I believe he's going to be franchise tagged, and I think he could be traded. And there was an interesting little tidbit. I'm not going to get too much into the trade talk because that's not what this video is about, but there was an interesting tidbit when asked if Les Snead would actually use his pick. He's not really sure if he's going to use his pick this year. So just keep that in mind. They finally have a first rounder, haven't drafted a first round player since Jared Goff in 2016. The Rams could trade away their first round pick again. And if they did, I think if you told me that the Rams were 100% trading their pick, I would assume it would be for Josh Allen, who is the best edge defender on the market. Probably won't be on the market, but he's got a .4 PFF WAR, which is really good. He was one of the best edge defenders this year. He'll be 27 next season. To me, when you look across the board, 11th overall edge, 19th against the run, 40th tackling, although I don't know what it is. A lot of these, edge defenders can't tackle, which isn't great, but that's, I guess, what we're dealing with. 8th in pass rush grade and 33rd in coverage. I think this is somebody that would work extremely well in the Rams defense. However, I don't know what they're going to do with that defense. If Raheem Morris leaves, they could change things up. So we'll see what ends up happening. But Josh Allen is definitely a name that I would say is the favorite. If he were to, God forbid, not get claimed, I think the Rams would easily get him. I don't think it would even be up for debate. The Rams need an edge more than anybody in the league. So, there you go there. All right, so next up we have Brian Burns, who, we already know the Rams tried to get him. They tried to send, the kitchen sink, the farm, the living room, the basement, the attic, tried to just send it all over to acquire Brian Burns. It did not work out, as we know. So this is another intriguing one. He could very well get franchise tagged here. It is a new regime. Carolina will have a new coach. Do they want to tag him? Do they just want to let him go? Do they want to trade him? It should be interesting. Brian Burns has not come to a deal yet with the Panthers. He just played 5 seasons with the Panthers. No deal. Went through his 5th year option. No deal. So What does that mean? I mean, you're looking at a guy who's a well-rounded player, not as good as Josh Allen, but could be better, if you give him time. His ceiling is still just astronomical. And I think when you put him with a guy like Aaron Donald and Byron Young and Kobe Turner and all those guys, I think he could really flourish with the Rams. There's a reason why the Rams wanted him before. He is a little overrated based on his PFF WAR, a 0.15 this year, 0.11 last year, and a 0, WAR the year prior. Whereas Josh Allen's is 0.4 this year, 0.42 last year, and 0.2 the year prior. But he's still a very good player. And you want to be careful with Brian Burns because you don't want to get caught into the idea that he's not good, because a lot of these metrics don't love him. But he's still a very, very good player. And the speed aspect of it, the athleticism he has, makes him about as dangerous of a pass rusher as it gets in a one-on-one situation. So keep that in mind. He's the number 5 PFF graded free agent total. They expect him to be tagged. I could see it. I don't know because Carolina's in a weird position. I mean, again, the new regime and everything. Do you tag? Do you not? He'll be 26 next year. Personally, for me, I don't think you can let him walk, but we'll see. They held on to him for a lot more, given up, so we'll see what ends up happening. Josh Allen, Brian Burns, PFF expects the franchise tag on. Moving on to their 12th overall player, edge defender Danielle Hunter. Hunter will be 30 this year, later on in the year, but he'll be 30. And when you look at him, this is somebody they don't expect to get tagged by the Vikings, and why would he? Kirk Cousins is also going to be a free agent. They can't just tag people. Normally, he's a pretty good run defender, but this year just not great. Ranked the 53rd run defender according to PFF among all edge defenders, but really, really athletic player, really talented, really ferocious pass rusher, always near the top in sacks. His issue's been health over his career, but, he was healthy this year. 3 years, $21.67 million average annual value with $40 million guaranteed and $65 million total is what PFF has. So if the Rams wanted to do that, he is going to be 30 at the end of this season. So I don't know if they want to go that route. I feel like they'd be more comfortable swinging for the fences with a 26-year-old pass rusher, but who knows? Danielle Hunter is an incredible talent, and if you had him with Donald, you had him with, like I mentioned, those other guys, that would definitely be beneficial, I think, for the Rams. Okay, moving on. We have an interesting one here who's rated number 18 of all free agents available by PFF. He is not really a proven run defender. I mean, he has over 100 snaps this year as a run defender, but for the most part, he's an obvious pass rushing specialist. That I don't want to use that lightly, because I know when people hear that, they think, oh, he's just a jag. Like he's a situational pass rusher. He's not, though, because he's such an elite pass rusher. The way he wins, you could argue he could start even with the deficiencies he has on the defensive side. But the Jets didn't have to put him in that position because they had guys all over the place. They could not even find room for 15th overall pick Will McDonald IV. So Bryce Huff, I am talking about, number 18, the Jets. I don't think he comes back. Well, maybe he does, but the projected contract they have is 3 years with $16.67 average annual value. So that's 3 years, around $50 million. Look, Bryce Huff would be a lot of fun, but Bryce Huff doesn't really fit the archetype they normally look for. He's going to be 26. He might be a really good bargain, but here's the problem. And the WAR is high. I mean, 0.23 this year, 0.22 last year. Always graded out really high by PFF. And the film, I love watching him on tape. But as a run defender, like the Rams need a guy that's a well-rounded defender. He is not somebody that you can really trust as a run defender yet. I think really with him, the hope would be, first off, the Rams don't really care about size. If that was the case and they got him, that's first thing. Second, he's cheaper. Third, I would say, is they believe that they can build him into a legitimate run defender. And if you think that, then Bryce Huff's your guy. But we move on. Chase Young with the San Francisco 49ers, 1 year, $15 million average annual value is his projected contract. That would not be a franchise tag. So Chase Young this year, he's had his moments. Chase Young is really a pass rusher, unproven run defender, and he's one of the worst tackling edge defenders I've seen. Hopefully he gets better in that area. He's very sparingly used in coverage, but he was good when he was used. So I think really what you're getting in him is that he's going to be 25 this year. So he's the youngest. Do you go after Chase Young? And it really makes me wonder if maybe that's the direction the Rams go in. He has the injury concerns, and those are concerns. I'm not blowing them off. I think the injury concerns are there, but it almost feels like he just makes sense. It would be weird watching him go from the 49ers to the Rams, but can you really tag Chase Young? The 49ers are in a good spot, but what 49er fans often fall victim to is not realizing that they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy upwards $40 million per year when he does sign that contract, which does take away what you're doing. It hurts we saw it with Jared Goff. When the Rams paid Jared Goff, bye-bye Ndamukong Suh, trade away Aqib Talib, trade away Marcus Peters. Yes, they got Jalen Ramsey because they literally didn't have to pay him yet. But that was the thing, is that, once you sign that quarterback and he's no longer on a rookie contract, you don't have the flexibility. And that's interesting because if Chase Young became a free agent, 49ers aren't able to bring him back, there is a pretty good chance the Rams could kick tires on that because, guy's going to be 25. He has immense talent. I think he just needs to be coached up. But yeah, as a run defender, not ideal. Needs to really improve as a tackler, though. There's no excuse when you're that big, you're that athletic. His PFF WAR just continues to go down. It went from 0.17 in 2021 to 0.03 to 0.01 this year. So big name, obviously, because he was drafted second overall in his respective draft class, but he's not quite living up to the expectations, we'll say, of a second overall pick. And he's already been traded for that reason. Okay, let's move on here. 38th overall PFF rank. We're talking about edge defender Jonathan Grenard. He's going to be playing today. If you're watching this, I would assume it's already today. So Grenard is an interesting one. Really finished off his contract year strong. He's going to be 27 next year, 3 years, 15.75 average annual value. So look, is he worth that? I think when you look at Grenard, he's rock solid, but he's not a good tackler. Okay. Used sparingly in coverage, but solid in coverage. Good rusher. To me, I look at a guy that I don't know if he really moves much of the needle. Like when you get into this point in free agency, you have to understand you could still find talent and these guys can work with Byron Young, but you're admitting that you're not going to go out and get an elite pass rusher. If you're down to, Jonathan Grenard, you're paying him a lot of money for him to be another guy. Like you're not getting a guy that's probably, I would take over Byron Young. Grenard had a really good year. I'm not hating on him, but that would be kind of disappointing. Another one that's a little interesting, and I've already seen him linked to the Rams, is Jadeveon Clowney, who's set to be 31 this year. Really, again, rock solid across the board, really well-rounded player. He's not a great tackler, and I'm uncertain about the scheme fit. They're saying 1 year, $9 million. I would probably say $13 million the way he played, because he had a really good year this year, a 0.35 PFF WAR grade, which is really high. If you go through all of these, I would say that is probably the highest outside of Josh Allen. So there's some value there. Here's the question though. Did Clowney just thrive with Mike McDonald? Because this might have been his best year. So that you don't want to find that out the hard way and just find out he's not a fit. So a little cheaper, but probably only wants a 1 year deal. And I don't know. To me, I feel like the Rams, and this is why I think they probably do make a trade, or they could make a trade, because the Rams want to get a legitimate pass rusher, I think. I really feel like they want to have a Jalen Ramsey-esque player rushing their quarterback. And I don't feel like you're going to get that if those two guys are off the board, Brian Burns and, of course, Josh Allen. So when you get to this point, you're kind of admitting defeat if you're going to sign Clowney. And also, you're not adding core pieces for the future. You're adding guys that are essentially in to win this year and win in a short amount of time. And I don't know if that's the direction the Rams are trying to go into, but if it is, then I think Clowney does make sense in that regard. I just don't see it. Another one I don't really see is Zadarius Smith, who is going to be 32 this year, end of this year. He is, I'd say he's an all-around solid player, not a great run defender. Clowney is way better as a run defender. Definitely more of a pass rush specialist. 0.25 WAR. He had a 0.41 WAR last year and a 0.01 the year prior. Good player, 2 years, $12 million. I mean, would you pay $6 million for Zadarius Smith if you had no other option? I mean, I don't see why not, but at the same time, I just don't know if they're going in that direction. And then it brings you to Josh Uche from the Patriots. Wicked down year, really disappointing. Uche is going to be 26 at the end of the season. You're talking about a year, $7.25 million average annual value. I think he makes a lot of sense for the Rams. He can kind of do it all. I know he had a disappointing year this year, but we know the talent. 2022 really showed that. A 0.29 PFF WAR, was the 14th overall edge. I think when you look at him, he's having a hard time in New England. Okay, the snaps aren't really there. It's a constant rotation. I mean, he's really just not garnering the snaps he needs to. And another thing is when you watched him at Michigan, you could clearly see he was a hybrid inside linebacker, outside linebacker, could rush the passer, could play off ball linebacker. I really like Uche, and I think he's a really good backup plan for the Rams. I've talked about for a while, and honestly, he was my number one option, I think, for the Rams for a while. But I think with Uche, while I've been a huge fan of him, throughout his career, interviewed him at the Senior Bowl, huge fan of him coming out of Michigan, was a big fan of his game. I think the fact of the matter is you're admitting that this is a backup plan if you go after Uche. Now, one thing I'll say is that he might be the best coverage edge that you can get in this free agency class. So he does a lot of the things that the Rams do well. We'll see what ends up happening there. Leonard Floyd is 49th. He was 48th. Leonard Floyd is 49th. 1 year, $6 million, currently with the Buffalo Bills. His WAR is negative now. So 162nd edge in terms of WAR back in 2021. He was 13th overall. He's going to be 32. I mean, I don't see a reunion with Leonard Floyd. I really like him. There's a reason why the Rams got rid of him. He is starting to fall off a little bit, at the very least, a little bit. And you can definitely see that going from his WAR in 2021 to 0.23 to now it's negative 0.03. Not ideal. I don't think Leonard Floyd reunion actually makes any sense. So I'm going to say no there. Andrew Van Ginkel is an interesting one because he's not like your stereotypical edge defender, so to speak, a little bit more lighter, built more like just an inside linebacker, but he was incredible this year. I mean, he really was. A 0.46 PFF WAR, one of the best blitzing guys. They just used him all different ways, and he was just kind of a Swiss Army knife. 2 years, 6.5 average annual just seems insane to me. I think he could get a lot more, maybe even up to 2 years, 27 million total. This is an interesting one because the way, if Raheem Morris comes back, the way he was using Ernest Jones to blitz, it'd be interesting if they almost wanted to use Ginkel as a inside linebacker next to Ernest Jones and have it like mix it up and everything. I mean, a 0.46 WAR is the best thing on this list. He's the 59th ranked PFF, overall player. But I mean, as far as edge goes, he's not a straight edge player. He's going to be 29, but Van Ginkel had a really good season, and that can't be, overstated. Now, okay, here's the deal. There's two more. These guys are interesting to me. I'm going to name one of them. You guys have mentioned him in the comments section. He went to the University of Kansas behind me, or Kansas University. Probably we'll just call it Kansas University since they're called KU. But Dorrance Armstrong Jr., watched him in college, wanted the Rams to draft him. He's had a really solid career. This year, he had a .05 PFF WAR. This isn't a guy that's really going to move the needle, though. You have to understand this guy is probably around that same level as Byron Young, but he doesn't have Young's upside because Young is probably as good as him, and he's still young. So, funny, I just realized what I said. Dorrance Armstrong, they're projecting 3 years, $8.5 million average annual. That's three years, $25.5 million. I don't know if it makes sense. I don't know if he makes sense. I'm going to say no. And then last but not least here, I was a big fan of his coming out of the draft. Marcus Davenport. Man, he looked like such a force in 2021 and even in 2022, but he's dealt with some injuries. He signed a prove-it deal with the Vikings, didn't really prove anything because of the injury. So now they're saying it's down to 1 year, $5 million average annual. I got to be honest with you. I mean, the Rams had Michael Hoyt, who's a 310-pound, 6'4" defensive lineman playing outside linebacker. Marcus Davenport, bringing him in for cheap might be the move as a backup plan if all else falls through. I really like him. PFF grade of 100, PFF rank out of all free agents at 127. I get that, but this is somebody still 27 years old, will be 28 at the end of the year. You get him on like a prove-it deal, get you through this year. He's not old, so you don't have like that vibe hanging over your head like, okay, we're just going after these old players now. No, I think Davenport, maybe you can give him like a 2-year deal, maybe a player option or something. I don't know. Probably team option. I don't know how much leverage he has with the injury, but it is fascinating. I look at Marcus Davenport as he could be somebody, to keep an eye on. So where do I have the Rams going? Well, what direction? Well, I'll be honest with you. I think Brian Burns makes the most sense right now. I think Josh Allen's going to get tagged, and I don't think the Jaguars, having their regime in place, are going to move him. However, Brian Burns, I don't think you can just tag him with this new regime. I think now, turning over a whole new leaf, new GM, Scott Fitterer, I believe, was the GM. He's gone. New head coach. We don't even know who that is yet. I just don't think you can keep Brian Burns. Like, you can justify tagging him when you don't really know what the rest of the team is going to look like. They could very well end up tagging him, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. And I think he's just somebody that'd be much better on the Rams than the Carolina Panthers. So I'm going to say that the Rams I think they're going to bring back Hoyt on a cheaper deal. But I think they're going to sign Burns. I think they're going to go all out, sign Burns. I could see Carolina doing the transition tag, the right of first refusal. But I mean, to be honest with you, Josh Allen, like, the only way you're going to get him is if you trade. I could see the Rams signing Burns. If both of these guys get, into that situation there, I could see Danielle Hunter. I got to be honest with you, though. I don't see a lot of Rams here. Like, I can't picture Davenport being a Ram. I'd like to see it, but I can't picture that. I can't picture Armstrong. Van Ginkel, I don't think. Well, he could. I don't know. Maybe they could go after him. Floyd, no. Uche is somebody I'm definitely keeping an eye on. I think he's somebody. Zadarius Smith and Jadeveon Clowney, I just don't see it. I really don't see it. I get the vibe with Clowney. 1 year, just have him go after it. I don't see it. Jonathan Grenard, I think he's going to stick with Houston in all likelihood. Chase Young, I can see. Bryce Huff, I can almost see. I feel like the most likely scenario is either they trade for Josh Allen, they sign Brian Burns, or they trade for him, or they sign Danielle Hunter. That's what I think. I think they're going to go for one of those three. So, what do you guys think? I'm kind of torn. It's not a simple thing. They're not going to be guaranteed a bunch of guys in this free agency class. So the Rams could very well be in a situation where Josh Allen gets tagged, Brian Burns gets tagged, Danielle Hunter gets tagged, Bryce Huff gets tagged, Chase Young gets tagged. I mean, there's a lot, but there's not a lot. Like, to me, I would call this, assuming Burns and Allen are gone, This is a Madden free agency. Like where you're like, oh yeah, the overalls are high, right? The Madden ratings are high and you can upgrade your, at the end of the season in the game, but you're not getting a superstar because those guys have already been claimed by, or, they've been tagged by the AI. The AI is not going to let those guys just walk into free agency. That just doesn't happen. So yeah, it's tough right now. I lean towards Burns being a Ram. What would I do? I might trade for Josh Allen, to be honest with you. I think it might be worth it. See if you can get him for a first. If Jacksonville balks, offer a third and a first. I don't know. But I think that the Rams have a shot to really find their guy. Danielle Hunter is a little old, on the older side. But if I really think their interest in the past in Brian Burns says a lot about what direction they could go in. If they were willing to give up that many picks, and I was told that before that report came out that they were looking at Brian Burns and they were willing to give up all those picks. They were willing to do that before. I think they're definitely willing to at least make a run for him now. So we'll see. And maybe the Rams don't end up picking in the first round after all. And then that's back to the drawing board. Do they go for an edge in the draft? Do they just avoid it in free agency? We're going to find out. But I hope this helped. This gave you some idea of, the directions they can go in. There's a lot of names, folks. A lot of names, but I like seeing a lot of names. I just don't, with the tag and everything, it's going to make it a little difficult to go and get an elite pass rusher. But we'll see what ends up happening. So you guys take care. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow me at JK Bogan, and check out my podcast if you could. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, folks. Later.
Start playing Pick'em or Weekly Fantasy for any sport today, Jake. Users will receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 if they use promo code OTE at sign up. Start playing Pick'em and Weekly Fantasy Football today with Underdog Fantasy.
Do you love talking about the Rams, the NFL, or just want to be a part of a community? Join my free Discord server today. We're over 800 members. We got 24/7 live chat, a level 3 boosted server, the ability to call into JE Live, playing online games with us on Kick streams, toggleable alerts for when I go live on YouTube or Kick so you don't miss a live stream, and exclusive giveaways. Click the link in the description, the comments section, or the link that comes up in the video to learn more and join today.